January 19 for 5. The Eastern Front is a frozen expanse of mud, snow, and shattered infrastructure. Roads are choked with convoys. Rail lines carry the last remnants of men and materiel toward the Oder. And at the heart of Soviet high command, a single assumption dominates every plan: Berlin will fall to the Red Army alone. Stalin and his generals have projected it with absolute certainty. No Western allied spearhead will reach the city first. No compromise on timing, no shared glory. The maps sprawled across the tables at Stavka are drawn with bold red lines, showing the axis of advance and the sectors assigned to each front. Every division has a designated corridor, every tank regiment a target sector. Logistics schedules are calculated to the hour, ensuring ammunition, fuel, and rations meet each stage of the push. The intelligence reports reinforce the assumption. German defenses are being dismantled piecemeal. Cities fall. Bridges are destroyed to delay, but not halt the advance, and enemy units retreat in disarray. Western movements, beyond reconnaissance, are largely irrelevant. Berlin is already claimed. In theory, the operation is framed as an inevitability rather than a challenge. In the Voronezh and 1st Belarusian Front headquarters, commanders discuss timing with precision bordering on obsession. The ultimate assault is set to launch from positions already identified, with artillery emplacements pre-calculated and air support integrated into the sequence of attack. Every nuance of terrain, every building of strategic value, has been accounted for in overlays and charts. The planners speak of Berlin as if it is already under their control, a city awaiting liberation rather than conquest. Yet confidence breeds risk. The Soviet operational culture emphasizes initiative, but also assumes obedience to the centralized plan. Deviations are discouraged. The momentum of the Red Army is immense, but it is directed, coordinated, and dependent on synchronized logistics. Supplies must arrive at precise intervals. Units must hold assigned corridors, and any delay threatens the rhythm of the advance. By early February, Soviet troops begin moving with a mixture of anticipation and inevitability. Forward reconnaissance pushes into the outskirts of towns like Kostrin and Frankfurt-Oder, probing German lines that are framed under constant pressure. Infantry and armored units move in tandem, following calculated routes that minimize exposure to counterattacks, while maximizing the ability to concentrate force on weak points. Engineers are ready to bridge rivers, clear mines, and repair roads. Fuel dumps and ammunition stockpiles march behind the front lines with the precision of clockwork. The city of Berlin looms in strategy rooms long before it does on the horizon. Maps are annotated in red and black ink, marking the expected points of contact with German defenses. The final assault is scheduled in phases: encirclement, artillery bombardment, infantry assault, and armored exploitation. Commanders at every level are briefed on the importance of adhering strictly to these timelines. Failure to comply, even in minor adjustments, is considered a risk to the entire operation. Political considerations intertwine with military planning. Stalin personally stresses the symbolic importance of the capture. Propaganda narratives have already begun to circulate within the army, framing the upcoming assault as the inevitable liberation of Berlin by Soviet hands. Troops are informed that the city is theirs to reclaim, and that Western forces, while allies in a broader sense, will not participate in its final conquest. On the front lines, soldiers feel the weight of expectation. Morale is high, fueled by successive victories and reinforced by the certainty of the planners behind them. Artillery fires in preparation. Reconnaissance units report destroyed bridges, mined roads, and scattered enemy resistance. Every report feeds into the collective assumption Berlin is reachable, inevitable, and pre-assigned. Yet beneath the surface of confidence, there are unknowns. German forces, though depleted, still hold pockets of resistance. Urban combat will be chaotic. Supply lines are stretched across hundreds of kilometers of winter-ravaged terrain. Weather can disrupt movement, but these are details to be managed, not obstacles to the overarching plan. In the minds of Soviet high command, the operational logic is clear. Initiative is theirs. Berlin is theirs, and Western influence is marginal. By mid-February, the operational tempo accelerates. Divisions reposition closer to their designated launch points, Artillery units pre-register targets across expected enemy positions. Air reconnaissance gathers photographic intelligence, verifying the placement of German fortifications and the condition of roads. Logistics units coordinate fuel and munitions delivery with almost obsessive precision, ensuring that no delay slows the anticipated assault. Even at the lowest echelons, the expectation of victory shapes behavior. Platoon commanders train their men in rapid assault techniques, anticipating the urban combat that will follow. Engineers rehearse bridging rivers and clearing debris, anticipating every obstacle that may impede the advance. Supplies are stockpiled. In forward positions, units march with a sense of predetermined purpose, as though Berlin's streets are already marked for their arrival. Stavka. Stalin reviews reports with satisfaction. The sequence of advances, the preparation of artillery, and the synchronization of armored and infantry units all align with the original projections. Confidence is absolute. Berlin is treated not as an objective that must be fought for under uncertain conditions, but as a prize preassigned by circumstance, to be seized at the appointed moment by initiative and planning already proven effective. In the westward push from Poland and Silesia, the assumption carries weight across every level of command. Mistakes will be penalized, but hesitation will be punished even more severely. The Red Army moves with the certainty of inevitability, a machine designed to reach a city that, in their minds, has already been chosen by history. By late February, the front approaches the Oder. Forward units secure river crossings and establish bridge heads. Infantry regiments advance in coordinated sweeps. Armored spearheads push through towns cleared of meaningful resistance. Artillery fires with precise timing, designed to suppress German positions that have not yet collapsed under sheer pressure. The rhythm of the advance is relentless. Berlin is no longer a distant city on the map. It is a point in operational planning, a coordinate in the minds of the men commanding hundreds of thousands of troops. The logic of the plan assumes absolute control of the approaches. Every bridge, every road, every crossroad must be accounted for before the assault begins. Yet confidence remains unshaken. Soviet High Command believes Berlin will fall exactly as planned. The assumption is both tactical and psychological. German forces are expected to crumble under continuous pressure. The Western Allies, advancing from the West, are not projected to interfere. Intelligence emphasizes the strategic separation of fronts, ensuring that coordination between Soviets and Americans will not affect the timing of the final assault. The Red Army's initiative is unquestioned. Its momentum is unstoppable in the minds of those plotting the final move on the city. As March begins, the Soviets' operational picture is complete. Maps are updated, supply lines are reinforced, troops are briefed. Berlin's capture is framed as a certainty, the natural conclusion of a series of precise and disciplined advances. In planning rooms and on the front lines alike, the narrative is the same. Berlin is pre-assigned. The initiative is ours, and nothing from the West will interfere with the march to victory. Yet, beneath the certainty, the stage is set for unforeseen challenges, urban combat, civilian presence, and the resilience of remaining German units all remain variables that cannot be fully controlled. For now, however, Soviet High Command moves with the confidence of a commander who believes the outcome is already decided. Every schedule, every map, every report reinforces the expectation Berlin will fall under Red Army control alone, and history, as they see it, is already written. February 12th, 19 for 5. Snow still blankets the forest of eastern Germany, but the cold is relentless, gnawing through layers of clothing and steel alike. Roads are churned into ice and mud, yet armored columns of Patton's Third Army push forward with a speed that shocks even the most seasoned staff officers. The spearheads are not merely advancing, they are leaping forward, moving east and north, faster than Soviet planners ever imagined. Villages meant to be secured over days fall in hours. Crossroads are taken before enemy defenses can react. The rhythm of tanks, half-tracks, and motorized infantry sets a tempo that the Red Army had not accounted for. Allied reconnaissance reports flood headquarters. Forward observers describe columns of Sherman and Enfer tanks sneaking through forests, bridging frozen rivers, and clearing towns with astonishing coordination. The distances that Soviet maps mark as multi-day objectives are being closed in a fraction of the expected time. Every intercepted radio transmission feeds into Soviet uncertainty. Officers at Stavka read upgrades with growing disbelief. Armored regiments, previously assumed to require reinforcement before advancing, are now reported hundreds of kilometers from their last positions. The tempo and synchronization of Pattons units reveal a level of operational skill that even the best German planners had failed to match. The unexpected speed is creating chaos in Moscow's calculations. The front is shifting. German defenses, already stretched thin and disorganized, now face a threat from an axis that had not been fully integrated into Soviet contingency plans. The perception of the battlefield is changing by the hour. Patton's methodology is precise yet audacious. Engineers keep pace with tanks, clearing obstacles that would slow slower forces. Infantry rides armor or moves in rapid echelon, securing flanks and supply lines simultaneously. Forward artillery units displace quickly, firing suppressive missions to neutralize any lingering German resistance before it can coalesce. Soviet intelligence intercepts note this unusual coordination. The reports highlight a level of speed, decision-making, and logistical fluidity previously unaccounted for in operational calculations. It is not reckless. It is meticulously executed, pushing every unit to the limit of endurance without collapsing cohesion. By mid-February, the implications are clear. Patton's advance threatens to approach key approaches to Berlin months ahead of what Soviet High Command had projected. Units that were intended to secure river crossings, forests, and roads for months now face immediate pressure from forces arriving far faster than expected. On the front, American soldiers sense the momentum. Exhausted yet driven, they move through snow-choked villages and over-frozen rivers, carrying the sense that every mile forward compounds the advantage. German defenders, already reeling from prior defeats, find themselves confronted with a moving target, impossible to pin down, and striking from unexpected directions. The speed also forces commanders to make rapid logistical calculations. Fuel consumption spikes. Ammunition stocks are diverted forward. Vehicles break down and are abandoned or cannibalized to keep others moving. The margin for error is thin, but Patton understands the calculus. Speed itself is a weapon. By February 18, Third Army elements are reported near the outer approaches that Soviet planners had considered secure for weeks. Patrols confirm towns are empty of organized German defense. Roads once thought impassable under winter conditions are cleared and dominated. Forward reconnaissance films show armor in positions that have altered the perceived frontline dramatically. At Stavka, the situation is tense. Maps are redrawn. Orders are reconsidered. Units expected to hold in depth are now under direct threat from unexpected vectors. The perception of a shifting front dominates discussions. Analysts debate whether the movement is a temporary anomaly or a sustained operational breakthrough. Patton's rapid advance has not only changed the ground he occupies, but has forced Soviet command to reconsider the assumptions underlying their Berlin operation. Their pre-assigned objectives, corridors of advance, and timing sequences no longer reflect reality. Every hour of American momentum undermines the certainty that had driven months of Soviet planning. What was to be a controlled, predictable assault on Berlin is now clouded by uncertainty. The speed, coordination, and audacity of Third Army create a perception that the front is more fluid, more dynamic, and less predictable than ever before. By the end of February, it is undeniable. Patton's rapid advance has created operational ambiguity. Soviet planners, conditioned to anticipate methodical progress, now face the reality of a Western Allied thrust that could influence the timing, the axis, and even the outcome of the final assault on Berlin. On the ground, German forces struggle to respond. Units previously tasked with delaying the Soviets find themselves reassigned to counter an unexpected Allied axis. Communications fail under the pressure of rapid movement. Commanders make ad hoc decisions to fill gaps, but the tempo of Third Army denies them the time to consolidate. Patton's advance continues. Every mile forward compounds both tactical success and strategic complexity. Supply convoys follow. Artillery displaces, and infantry secures the newly opened approaches. The effect is immediate. Pressure on German forces increases. Operational flexibility for the Red Army decreases, and the perception of an impending clash over Berlin becomes uncertain for both Allies and Axis. The lesson is unmistakable. Momentum, speed, and audacious execution can shift operational realities faster than calculations, maps, or assumptions. The front is no longer a line to be heralded as a living, shifting landscape, and Patton is reshaping it with every calculated mile. The stage is set. Berlin is no longer assumed to fall in isolation. Third Army's rapid advance has introduced a variable that Soviet High Command had not anticipated, creating uncertainty, urgency, and a subtle, creeping perception that the Western Allies might arrive sooner than expected. Late February 19 for 5. In the ornate, dimly lit rooms of the Kremlin, maps are spread across polished tables, pins marking Soviet advances, and colored overlays denoting Allied positions. Reports from forward reconnaissance arrive in rapid succession patterns. Columns moving faster than anticipated, bridges secured along critical routes, towns captured with astonishing speed. Each dispatch adds weight to a growing concern. The Western Allies are approaching a threshold. Moscow had assumed unassailable. Stalin's advisors meet in hurried sessions, their discussions tight, guarded, and urgent. Military planners recount the distances Third Army has covered under winter conditions that were supposed to slow any advance. Logistics officers calculate how long it would take to react if the Americans reach points near Berlin before Soviet forces consolidate there. Encirclement. The certainty that had driven months of planning begins to erode. Concerns are no longer purely operational, they are political. Soviet control over territory, the symbolic capture of Berlin, and the post-war division of influence suddenly feel fragile. What had been a matter of military sequence now overlaps with strategic negotiation. Each mile gained by the Allies creates questions about occupation zones, political leverage, and the optics of victory. Messages between Soviet and Allied liaison officers take on a sharper tone. Previously cordial, cooperative communications now carry an edge of caution and pointed reminders. Every phrasing is deliberate. The Soviets emphasize the need to respect operational sectors. Allies respond with assurances, but the undertone is clear. Speed is a factor that cannot be ignored. Behind the polite exchanges, military planning begins to shift. Contingencies are drafted to counter possible Allied encroachment. Units are repositioned to secure key approaches. Supply hubs are reinforced, and artillery is pre-registered on sectors now seen as potentially contested. The idea of a Berlin fully under Soviet control, once guaranteed, becomes a variable to be defended, not merely seized. In these closed-door sessions, a rare admission surfaces. The Red Army is not invulnerable to timing, coordination, and initiative. From the West, Soviet command, usually projecting unshakable confidence, acknowledges that operational tempo elsewhere could disrupt plans meticulously laid over months. It is an implicit recognition of vulnerability, strategic uncertainty, that has no place in public narratives. The tension spreads through the chain of command. Front commanders receive updated directives emphasizing flexibility, rapid response, and the importance of controlling not just terrain, but perception. Engineers are instructed to secure key crossings preemptively, and reconnaissance is intensified to monitor Allied movements. Every decision is now filtered through both a military and a diplomatic lens. On the ground, troops notice the changes. Orders shift from routine consolidation to aggressive securing of corridors. Supply lines are reinforced to prevent any loss of momentum. Officers explain to men that the stakes are no longer just victory, they are influence, prestige, and the balance of post-war power. Every action forward carries weight far beyond immediate tactical gain. By the first days of March, the diplomatic tension is palpable. Western reports of Third Army's advances circulate rapidly, translated and analyzed by Soviet intelligence. Moscow issues subtle instructions to Stavka, reinforce sectors approaching Allied axis, maintain forward observation posts, and prepare for potential coordination or conflict with Western forces. Military logic now intertwines with political. strategy in a way rarely seen before the front. This rare admission of vulnerability in Soviet command reshapes the operational mindset. Commanders must balance speed with caution, initiative with obedience, and military necessity with political consequence. Patton's unanticipated momentum has forced the Red Army to adjust, not just in the field, but in strategy rooms and planning boards, where the coming days will decide the fate of Berlin in the post-war balance of power. The message is clear. The war is not just fought with guns and tanks, but with timing, coordination, and the subtle leverage of influence. Moscow may have assumed inevitability, but Third Army's advance has transformed certainty into calculated urgency. Every movement forward by the Allies now carries both a tactical and a political echo, signaling that Berlin may not be pre-assigned after all. March 3, 1945. Inside the dim corridors of the Kremlin, Stalin sits before a vast map of eastern Germany. Pins and colored threads mark the relentless advance of the Red Army. But one set of movements commands his attention above all: the columns of Patton's Third Army, surging east and north with a speed that had been almost unimaginable to Soviet planners. Reports arrive in a constant flow, detailing armored units reaching key crossings in towns far earlier than expected. Minutes into the briefing, Stalin's unease becomes palpable. His advisors speak quickly, almost nervously, citing distance as closed, bridges secured, and enemy resistance collapsing under the weight of Allied coordination. The records later reflect sharp exhalations, terse commands, and a palpable shift in tone as Stalin questions whether pre-assigned objectives can still be held. In isolation, operational logs from Stavka note immediate adjustments. Reserves once held back for later phases are reassigned without hesitation. Rifle divisions, armor regiments, and artillery units are repositioned to reinforce sectors near potential Allied approaches to Berlin. Engineers and sappers are ordered to prioritize defensive preparations and rapid bridge construction along anticipated routes. Every asset is reprioritized to regain tempo. Confidence in the notion of uncontested occupation, once absolute, is shaken for the first time in months. Moscow acknowledges the possibility, however temporary, that Western forces might influence the final seizure of Berlin. Stalin does not verbalize panic, but the records show a subtle recalibration of operational assumptions. Timelines are compressed, and contingencies are broadened. Soviet staff officers document directives aimed squarely at restoring initiative. Orders emphasize accelerated assaults, rapid consolidation of captured ground, and aggressive forward reconnaissance. Artillery is pre-registered on likely avenues of Allied approach. Forward units are instructed to secure towns and crossings not only for tactical necessity, but also to reinforce a perception of inevitability. Berlin must remain a Soviet prize. The private reaction of Stalin, as later reconstructed from meeting notes and internal memoranda, underscores more than operational concern. It reflects the psychological impact of Allied speed. Patton's advance is not just a logistical challenge. It is a visible signal that Western initiative can influence Soviet assumptions. Moscow's planners are forced to contend with the reality that operational tempo elsewhere has diplomatic and psychological consequences. Throughout March, the reaction drives rapid adjustments across all fronts. Reserve formations are accelerated into position, assault sectors are reprioritized, flanking operations are reviewed with heightened scrutiny. Commanders are reminded that speed, timing, and perception are as critical as numerical superiority. Every hour of delay risks not just tactical disadvantage, but the symbolic erosion of Soviet control over Berlin. Stalin's private unease is mirrored in the quiet intensity of Stavka sessions. Officers note terse instructions, immediate reallocation of resources, and an unmistakable push to regain momentum. The emphasis is not on criticism of the Red Army's execution. Morale remains high, but on ensuring that the initiative, once unquestionably Soviet, remains firmly under their control. The records highlight the broader impact of Allied operational speed. Patton's advance has forced a reconsideration of previously unquestioned assumptions. Berlin, long treated as pre-assigned, is now a contested variable, and the psychological effect ripples through every planning room and staff briefing. Soviet confidence is restored only through proactive adjustments. A clear acknowledgement that initiative elsewhere can unsettle even the most meticulously planned operations. By mid-March, these rapid reactions have tangible results. Soviet units, repositioned to guard key approaches, accelerate forward. Reconnaissance intensifies along threatened axes, and artillery support is shifted to dominate routes previously considered secure. The logs document a renewed emphasis on tempo, initiative, and coordination measures designed to reassert control over the operational narrative and ensure that the symbolic and strategic prize of Berlin remains within Soviet hands. Stalin's private reaction, though unseen by the outside world, captures a critical moment. Even the most confident command can be unsettled by the unexpected speed of an opponent. Patton's advance has proven that operational initiative carries influence beyond immediate tactical gains. The movement of armored columns hundreds of kilometers from previous positions has forced Moscow to confront uncertainty, recalibrate priorities, and assert tempo in ways previously deemed unnecessary. By the end of the month, the adjustments begin to stabilize the Red Army's forward operations. Confidence slowly returns, but the psychological and diplomatic impact of Patton's maneuver remains. Moscow's planners now understand that the pace of the Allies can no longer be ignored, and every subsequent decision carries the shadow of that early winter advance, a reminder that even the most carefully pre-assigned objectives can be challenged by speed, coordination, and audacity.